Hi everyone, welcome to Channel Your Emotions. I'm Bill Clotty, a licensed psychotherapist. Today we're going to talk about anger, really a big problem, especially anger from someone you love, someone we tend to call a troubled loved one. And in this case, the trouble that they're having is being too angry. So we're going to talk about exactly what you can do about that in some very specific ways. Okay, that's going to be I messages, not you messages, and active listening. Let me preface this with the following, that it's critical to know how to handle angry people around you, whether it's a spouse, husband, child, parent, sibling, coworker, because it can be hard to tiptoe around people. And surprisingly, much can be done if you know how to communicate in very simple ways with a very angry person. A primary thing to keep in mind is that when somebody's angry, they're in their heart, not their head. Okay, they're not thinking, they're reacting, they're emotional, they're upset. So you've got to be careful in how you respond to those people, because they're not listening to you, for one thing. They're listening to their heart, themselves, their anger. They're not listening to you. So how do you get in and out of that situation in the calmest, best way? And that's what we're going to answer right now. So let's start with I messages, okay? Not eyeball, but me messages, I messages. So when you're talking with somebody or you're around somebody who's ranting and raving or very angry, even scary angry, you can react by simply acknowledging what you're feeling and not arguing with them or blaming them or trying to get them to rationalize with you, because they're not going to do it. They're angry, they're upset. So what you do instead is just try to acknowledge how you're feeling, so that you're having some communication. You're not just blocking out all words, which gives them license to keep yelling and screaming or ranting or sulking or blaming. And here's what you do. A difference between an I message and a you message. Very clear and very helpful. An I message tells that person that's around you and angry about you. You say how you're feeling or what you're thinking. That might sound selfish, but hear me out. A you message tells them about them. Here's some examples. A you message is, you're so mad, you're just scary. And I message is, I'm really scared right now. Another you message would be, you never listen to me. And I message is, I don't feel listened to. Another you message would be like, you're always yelling. You're not being fair. And I message is, I don't know what to do when there's so much anger around me. Okay? Those are examples. The clue here is, don't use the word you in sentences when you're talking with somebody that's angry. Okay? Use I or me. That will make you be more clear that you're talking about yourself and how you're reacting to them. Now, you wouldn't say like, I feel terrible because you're such a horrible person. If you caught that, it was an I message, and then it was because you're such a terrible person. Then I use that word you in there, which they are going to take because they're in their heart, and they're not a very loving heart, but they're in their emotional part here, not intellectual or head part where they can hear you, because this is overpowering this, and that's what's going on. So don't say you, talk about what you're feeling. And the importance of this is to recognize that you want to communicate something, but you don't want to be blaming them because they're mad. By the way, it doesn't matter in this exercise or with this process or this technique of I messages, me messages, it doesn't matter if their anger is justified or correct or accurate or ridiculous. It doesn't matter. All of that stuff doesn't matter. And that's one reason not to argue it with them, because it doesn't matter to them. They're in here, they're mad, and they're not listening. So you just let them know how you feel to have some response to them, because they're also probably get mad if you don't respond. Sometimes, some people, right? If you don't respond to their anger, they get madder. So you can respond by iMessages rather than you don't listen, you're bad, you're trouble. Instead, use the word I or me and say brief sentences. I will also say, don't try to convince them, by the way, okay? Do not try to convince them of anything. This is not a license for you to then have an argument and tell them how bad they are because you feel bad or scared. But it's an opportunity for you to try to resolve the issue so they will calm down. And you might be surprised that they will calm down, and what might happen is suddenly they just walk away. Instead of still yelling at you or blaming you, they might just walk away or might get frustrated. But that then gives them time to calm down and get out of their heart anger a little bit into their thoughts. And then maybe later on you can talk about it, and it would be great if you could, in fact, although that later might be an hour or two or even a day or two later. And maybe you could at that point bring up that conversation of how you were feeling and what happened and talk to them. The second thing that we're going to talk about today is active listening. Beautiful stuff. Active listening is another very, very helpful approach to dealing with people, whether it's a spouse, a grandchild, a kid, even little kids. What you basically do with active listening is you listen actively. You don't just stare, you don't just talk, but you listen, and the way that they know you're listening are two main ways, I guess. The first is just your attention and your body movements. So if somebody's really angry at you, you try to have at least some contact. You let them know that you're there and you hear them, okay? Because that makes them feel understood a little bit, because remember, they're in their anger. They're not in logic, and you're not going to logic them out of anything. You're not going to convince them of anything, trust me. But you can let them know how you're feeling so they can subtly take that feedback and maybe calm down, okay? So with active listening, it's really very simple in many ways. What you do is just basically repeat back what you think they've said. So if he does, and it can be a man or woman, but I'm going to say a he in this case because it's often been men in my experience as I've worked with them. If he says, I'm so ticked off at you, instead of defending yourself or saying, you always are, that's a you message, you can say, well, I'm feeling scared. But in active listening, what you can do is say, you're ticked off. So you use a couple of the key words in their sentence and repeat it to them. If they say to you, nobody cares about me, you respond with something like, you feel like nobody cares. Or you just say, nobody cares. You just use those key words so they really feel heard. See, you're listening and you're proving it, not to prove them wrong or anything, but showing them that you are listening to them. So you're repeating back the main words, and that's pretty much it. I'll give you another example. If they say that, I'm so frustrated I could just spit. And you say to them, you just say, you're really frustrated. You're frustrated. They'll often agree with you, which is interesting. They'll say, yeah, I'm really pissed off. Boy, you're really mad. You just keep echoing back, and you keep doing it a little bit, and they will lose energy for that anger surprisingly quickly sometimes, because in their emotional upset, they're feeling a connection to you that verifies to them that you heard them, that they were heard in their anger. Not that you're going to do what they say or not that you're going to cower in fear, or not that you're going to blame them, but that you heard them. And when you do that, they feel unconsciously a sigh of relief that they've been understood, that they've been accepted. And it takes the fight out of them, takes the energy out of them quite a bit. But again, you can keep saying this back and forth to them of echoing their words, not in a mocking way. You want to try to keep your emotions as calm as you can. In other words, if they tell you, I'm so disgusted with this house, you would say it like something like, wow, I hear you're really disgusted, or you're really disgusted. You're really upset. Yeah. And that's what happens. You'll hear them say like, yeah, that's true. It's just ridiculous. Wow. It's ridiculous for you. Yeah. I've been here for working all day, working on cleaning house, and you haven't done anything. Don't take the bait of like, yes, I did. I clean more than you did, and you never clean, and all those arguments, because why should you not get into an argument with a really angry person? In some cases, it's for your own safety, and that's a different category of situation in which you can call for help or police or move out of there temporarily or do what you need to protect yourself. That's number one. But another main reason that you don't argue with somebody when they're angry is because, right, they're in their heart. They're not in their head. They're not thinking logically. They're overwhelmed with emotion. Whether it's appropriate or not, whether that anger is valid or not, that doesn't matter. And don't argue that. What does matter is they're really angry and they're venting on you or somebody dear to you or near to you, and you're trying to help calm that down. And then hopefully be able to come back and talk about it later. That's I messages, not you messages. And in an I message, you use the word I or me, telling them a little bit about you, very briefly. A you message is telling them about you. Don't use the word you in there. Find a way not to say you, okay? Active listening is where you listen actively by repeating back some of the key words that a person is saying in a brief sentence. You don't go on and you don't argue. Just acknowledge them so that their heart gets a little bit safer to them until they calm down enough later on when you can maybe talk about this and when and when they're calmer. Thanks very much. I hope you will subscribe and come back next Friday when I'll be here again. Thanks.